Hi, my name is Amanda, and this is a letter to my sisters. I've been with the church about 10 years, and I've been through a lot. But something God instilled in me early on was obedience. No matter how my flesh felt, to be obedient. To my leaders in the family that God put me in, and to anyone that God put in an authority position, because in doing so, I'm being obedient to Him. I was raised a Catholic, and I'm number 2 of 4 sisters. We're all married now by the grace of God, but people still call us the Hunt sisters. Growing up, it was me and my 3 sisters, my mom, my uncle, and my grandma. I was raised in a home with a proud Puerto Rican supermama, and I was the fixer of the 4 of us. If mom needed something fixed, I tried my best to fix it. My dad would come around here and there, and every time he left, my heart would break all over again. My mother never said a bad thing about him, which I'm grateful for because I always felt my father's love, which translates to my relationship with God. I know He loves me. I remember always wanting to make my parents proud and be good because I didn't want to be punished by God or my parents. Between the ages of 18 and 21, I decided that's it. I graduated high school, I made my parents proud, and now I could do what I want. But all that did was make me spiral into smoking, drinking, clubbing, and being promiscuous. I met my husband Christian at 21, and I had met my best friend. I stopped everything and just hung out with him. We moved in together shortly after when neither one of us was ready to play house. We were just 2 broken people constantly breaking each other. At 21 years old, I had a miscarriage and gave birth for the first time in the bathroom at my mother's house. And no one prepared me for the emotional damage that was going to do. I never dealt with those feelings or really any feelings in my life. I just kept going, got over it, and moved on like a strong woman's supposed to do. Or so I thought. A year later, we had a son and I began going to church. That's when I started to really feel something different, something deep within my heart. Christian would come here and there and he would tell me that random people were reaching out to him saying that God had a plan for him. On Mother's Day, we heard a knock on the door, and it was a group of policemen there for Christian for a crime he had committed a few months back. He looked strangely peaceful, and I was not strangely peaceful. He called me from jail that night and said not to worry, we'll be okay. For the next 2 years, my life was consumed with prison visits, putting money into his prison account for food and to make calls, and taking care of a baby by myself. But most importantly, it was filled with God. I went to church every Sunday and served in the children's ministry. At the same time, a guard in the prison had led Christian to the Lord, and he was seeking Him also. When he was released, we continued going to church, and things were looking really good. One Sunday, we went to the altar together to just thank God for all that He's done for us, but once again, God had other plans for us. It was revealed to us that God wanted us to stop living together until we were married. So we obeyed and moved out that same night. 2 weeks later, Pastor Ron married us. We moved into this great apartment with a huge backyard, and things were really looking up. Shortly after, we had a little girl, and for 3 years, God really used us in that apartment. I was turning 30, and I felt like now's my time. I'm not having any more kids. I can work on myself as a woman of God and see how God is going to use me. And then we lost our home. We were living in my sister's basement, and our marriage was taking a hit. Things were just not going how I thought. We moved into a small 3rd-floor apartment. The kids couldn't run outside and play like they used to, and we couldn't host and fellowship like we were used to. And our marriage began to really struggle. As soon as we moved in, we were already being attacked. Prayer leaders from our church came to our house and prayed for us and our family. And we started to feel a shift. God always used the number 3 to communicate with me. And my sisters would joke that that was another baby. So I prayed very specific that God, if this is your will, reveal it to Christian and show him how we would grow as parents. So one night in the Smithfield campus, Christian and I were worshiping together, and God showed him a vision. And it was a vision of our family with 3 children instead of 2. God showed him areas we needed to grow and work on as well. The next morning, we wake up and he turns over and tells me the vision he had. He was pretty shocked when I told him what I had already been praying. So the next few days were really hard for me. I cried and I fought with God so much, even to the point of just saying, God, I've always been obedient, but not this time. In that exact moment, I felt the fear of God. I knew what his love felt like. I knew what his blessings and his goodness felt like, and even disappointments. But this felt like something different. I knew that not following his will would be drastic for God's mission for our family. So I came to terms with the fact that after 5 years, I was having another baby. We hadn't really told anyone, but people started having dreams of us having a baby boy. One day, as I was stressed about our finances, a message popped up. And it was a woman saying she had a dream we were having a baby boy named Elizar. We Googled the name, and it translated to, "My God is help." I knew that God was speaking to us and that he was orchestrating every single step. Each step was prayer, answer, obedience, and God was walking alongside us. A couple months later, we find out we're pregnant, but it's twins. And I will never forget that day, laying on the ultrasound bed and hearing the woman say, "You're having twins." The joy on her face, the joy on my mom's face, and the shock on my face. Then my daughter's little voice says, "I told you, Mommy, 2 babies." And she did say that, but I didn't take her seriously. She would say one baby was hers and one was her brother's, and hers was baby Essa. When people say double portion blessings, that's what it felt like. It felt like God was double blessing us for our obedience to living for him. And month after month, we watched these babies grow and interact with each other. We would watch our baby boy move like crazy, and Esther was just sitting there nice and calm. 4 months pregnant, I had my anatomy ultrasound, and I was beyond excited. I couldn't wait to find out the gender of these babies. They scan Esther and tell me she's a girl and that everything looks great. She scans the next baby and says the doctor will be in soon. So I'm sitting there looking at my mom confused, but I didn't think much into it because God's got me, so what could go wrong? When the doctor came in, he did a quick scan and says I can sit up. He says we have a healthy baby girl, but baby B has fluid in his lungs, in his head, and will likely not survive. I felt numb. My mother rebuked him right away and said, "No, we have faith. We know he'll get through this." He asked if I was okay, and I shook my head yes, but I felt like a zombie. We called Pastor Ron, and he asked me how I felt, and I said I didn't know. I didn't feel a thing. So we prayed and we declared, and I felt like I snapped back. This was not our portion. This was not going to happen. I wanted him out, and I wanted him safe, and it was totally out of my control. I had to trust God. This was the one thing I had always asked God not to do. To test me in all other areas, but please not with my kids. A month later, we had another anatomy ultrasound. But in that month, we had an army in the church praying for us and our babies. Again, this woman is scanning my babies. I see Esther's little heart beating. She scans Eli and again says, "The doctor will be right with you." He comes in, does a quick scan, and tells me he's very sorry, but baby B has passed away. I thought I had my heart broken before, but this was nothing like that. This was like a soul-crushing truth that I couldn't find a way out. There was no way Mandy the fixer was going to fix this. For the first time in my walk, I felt like that little girl whose father had abandoned her. Tears were rolling down my cheek, and I really felt this. There was no pushing away. There was no keep going. I felt this. Christian hugged me and said God had a plan. And I still remember my words. I said, "This is totally meaningless. Like, what was the point of this, and why would you let this happen? We went through all this because you told us so why?" But can I tell you, losing a child alone and without my relationship with God and losing a child with God and his family makes a difference. We left that appointment and Pastor Ron and Lori told us to come right over, and they cried and they prayed with us. And we had meals and gifts sent to our home for days after. My sisters in Christ rallied together and booked me an ultrasound to have clear pictures of my baby boy. For the next 4 months, I carried my babies and I believed for a miracle. April 16th came and I gave birth to my babies. I remember that last push very clearly. I screamed a scream that I don't think I will ever forget. And I heard one of the nurses say, "Is she okay?" And that's when I heard Esther's cry. It was like we were both mourning at the same time. The second I looked at her, though, I couldn't stop smiling and crying. She was so loud and beautiful, and I loved her so much. Even now, God gave her face everything I need to look at and be reminded of His love for me. Going through this has made my relationship with God so much deeper. I feel closer to heaven than I ever have. He's restored my marriage in a way that I don't think would have happened without this tragedy. And He's restored that little broken girl into a woman who knows how much she's worth and loved. I can feel now, and I can give those feelings to God instead of shoving them down and hardening myself to feel at all. So whatever you're going through, look to God because He never takes His eyes off of you. Ask Him to carry you through this moment. And when all else fails, even if the whole earth gives way beneath you, keep your feet planted on the rock because He knows the number of hairs on our heads and He knows the challenges we are facing. And nothing about the path you are on is permitted without His loving consent. If this video spoke to you, I want to encourage you to visit us at Legacy Church. If you've gone through something or are currently going through something painful, there is hope and you're not alone. And I hope to see you Sunday.